wholesaling. And so as we were wholesaling, we started doing one deal and then two deals. And then we were trying to scale up wholesaling. We realized we didn't have any sort of CRM or back end. And we ended up going into Tiffany and Josh High's mentorship. And we learned we implement all their processes, all their back end. And we end up scaling up a wholesale operation from 1 to 2 deals per month to 6 deals per month. As we were doing that, we started to realize that we were creating a giant hamster wheel for ourselves. As we grew the wholesaling company, our overhead went up. We went to $30,000 a month of overhead. We had a sales team, operations. We were spending a lot of money, and we had to just get 3 deals per month just to break even. So we would build up revenue, and then we would have 1 month where we get no deals, and then all that revenue would go out the window, and our bank accounts would be depleted again. And my original background is in my former life, I was living in Southeast Asia, in Bali and Thailand, and I was doing e-commerce. I was drop shipping. For drop shipping, you have a supplier in China, you make sure the product's really good, you make Facebook ads, and you sell the products, you middleman the products. And I was in that for a while and ended up leaving drop shipping because I was in this mindset of I'm going to borrow. I need to mute some people. I'm going to borrow so that eventually I can give back. Here, hold a second. Mitch, can you mute all the people for me? Okay. Hey, Mitch, I might have you give me back the ownership of the people so I can make sure it's.
Yeah, it's not letting me mute them.
Okay. Hey, Christy, could you mute yourself, please?
Thank you.
Mitch, I might have you pass me back the admin, or let me reclaim host. There we go.
You got it.
Boom. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties, y'all. Okay. Cool. So in my other life of doing dropshipping, I was in this mindset of, okay, I'm going to borrow and sell products and make a lot of money so that eventually I can give back and like live my ultimate life purpose. My goal is to make $1 million in a year. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to give back everything I borrowed. That 1 year turned to 3 years, and I quickly realized that I was living in illusion. And so I ended up leaving dropshipping, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to align with my purpose and passions like now and live in the both end, have my purpose and passion, make a difference, and create like great wealth for myself and my family. And as I got into wholesaling, we were doing 6 properties a month. I sat back and I realized that I was in this giant hamster wheel, and I realized that I was just drop shipping houses. Once again, I somehow found myself in this situation where I was a middleman again, and all I was doing was drop shipping houses. I was in the grind. I was working hard every day, calling sellers, getting properties locked up, but I wasn't building any actual long-term wealth. And the reality of wholesaling, and I have nothing against wholesaling, but like our profits are the sellers. Right? So for myself, so for myself, I realized that as a salesperson, I was in this weird moral area where I had to make profit for our company, and then I also had to work with these sellers, and what deal is too good of a deal? And it put me in just kind of this weird situation. I didn't really enjoy that process because, we want to make revenue in the game of business, but I'm also in this fine moral line. So as we started to do this, we started to lock up sub twos and creative finance deals. And that's when we discovered Wraps on Lease options. We found a mentor in Kansas City. That mentor, sorry guys, I'm going to figure out how to keep people in and muted, and also tell him to give his presentation. So we found a mentor in Kansas City. That guy's been doing lease options and Wraps for 30 years. And so we started locking up properties sub 2, and we learned how to sell them on seller financing. And what we discovered was that most of the buyers were first generation Americans. Most of them were fresh citizens or in the process of getting their citizenship. And it hit different when we went to the closing table, and the families that we were seller financing and working with were achieving the American dream by getting access to homeownership through the product that we were selling. Not only that, we turned $10,000 average assignment fees into $100,000 gross profit deal with a cash flow between $400 and $1,200 per month. So we literally 10x the lifetime value of our product when we started doing wraps and lease options. So we found the doing good while doing well. And not only that, the money that we received monthly from these tenants, from these buyers, was passive. It was mailbox money. We got to sit and collect money. They have ownership mindset, and we really just fell in love with the product in all areas of it. One is, we're lifestyle design guys. My business partner and I met each other living in Thailand. I love being virtual and remote. I like living. I do business to create impact and to have freedom within my life. When I was just wholesaling and not building assets, I was not building that freedom in my life. And so we found this model, we fell in love with it, and we started just wrapping and seller financing sub 2s as they came in. As we did a few of these, we realized this is it. This is the model we really like, and that's when we doubled down. Since we've done 60 creative deals, we've done around 200 transactions. So I think the core foundation for myself is everything begins with vision. And this is the thing I found a lot. When I was living in Bali, Indonesia, it's all these spiritual entrepreneurs who care so much about like the lifestyle design, the purpose. And then when I got into real estate, it was just like more houses, more houses, more houses. And last week we had a guest on in our community Wrap Academy who he's a mindset and visualization coach, and he makes $100,000 per month teaching mindset and visualization, right? And so he kind of broke it down for us about everything begins with the mind. And what the money's in our bank accounts, like where our level is all based off of what we believe our worth is.
Thank you.
So everything begins with the mindset. Everything begins with what we believe we are worth. And it all begins with lifestyle design. How can I design my life to live my dream life every single day so I'm a fulfilled millionaire? And so I actually went through a program recently called Fulfillionaire, the Fulfilled Millionaire. And in that, we really broke down using ChatGPT and using spreadsheets what our dream life looked like, and using ChatGPT prompts, it creates a vision for like what does my actual dream life look like? It's something that we can read back to ourselves every day, and then based off of what we desire to spend, what our actual freedom number is. Based off of my lifestyle, like how many kids I want to have, how I want to live my life. I want to clean, or I want this type of house. I want to live in this certain location. And based off of all of that, we broke down what our freedom number is. And then from that, we can work backwards. Because my experience of a lot of entrepreneurs is it's all about the more and more and more and more. Let's get more, but like what, and the reason, like, why do you want more? And the answer is like, so I can spend time with my family, and I can be free, and I can travel around, and all these different things. But in reality, it's not about more. There's a very specific number that we get to. And then based off of that, you can break that down to individual properties to know how big of a portfolio you need to get to that freedom number, so that you can live that life of freedom that you desire. So we have a free Skool community. There's a section in the classroom called Foundations. And in that, I have that exercise that I did in Fulfillionaire that will work with ChatGPT to define what your dream life looks like, as well as breaking down financially and monetarily and in numbers what that number actually is backwards from our dream life. Okay. So breaking down the business, what our business does is we buy 70 to 80% of property current market value. We put long-term financing in place, and there's different ways to put long-term financing in place. So when I talk to people about wraps and lease options, question number one is, how am I going to get long-term financing in place? And there's different answers to that question. So one of the answers is you can buy sub 2 and we seller financing. That is probably the easiest answer to this question. As we were scaling up this operation in Kansas City, my entire portfolio is in Kansas City, we were finding it challenging to find that many sub 2s and seller finance deals, and we wanted to really grow this model. And so we then invented what we can now call the jacket strategy, where we bought, we renovated, we refinanced, and then we seller financed or lease optioned on the back end. We call this a jacket because you wrap the burr. We did a burr and then we wrapped it. And so that is the jacket strategy. And that is how we were able to scale this model and do more and more of these deals. The downside is we had to figure out rehab, right? We had to figure out how to rehab house as well. So long-term financing in place for your first 10 deals, highly recommend seller financing and sub-2 wraps. And then we seller finance to a family at full market value, up to 15% above the market value. The families are willing to pay a premium on these houses because you're doing them a service of putting the financing in place for them. And then we collect $400 to $1,200 a month of passive cash flow and enjoy interest rate arbitrage and build our equity. So that is the business in a nutshell. So okay, if we were going to wait a little bit. So the growing market opportunity. So most of the people that buy from us are first generation Americans. Majority of them are Latino. This is the fastest growing demographic in the United States. It's 19% of the US population currently and expected to be 30% by 2050. And this demographic has $3.6 trillion in spending power in the United States as of 2024. And no matter what's going on with policies and administration changes, like this demographic is here. They want to buy houses. The reality is that the majority of them don't have credit. It's not that they have bad credit, it's that they have no credit. A lot of them are entrepreneurs, floors, roofers, GCs, and they have the capital, but the banks are not financing them because they don't fit into the box of the banks. So there's tons of these families all across the country growing every single day who want to buy these types of houses. It is a very underserved demographic and it's growing. So our foundation is also creating an ecosystem of wins. So this is what I really cared about when starting this business, was building a business that's purposeful and profitable. And I feel good while I'm doing it. I know there's an impact and a difference that I'm making. And this checked all the boxes. So what we do is we get to create homeowners. We get to do good while doing well. And so the family on the right here, this is Miss Nora, all the way on the right-hand side. And we sold them a house. And so the story of this house is this is one of the first deals we did, and in many ways it was a dumpster fire. The financing in place, into a pipe burst, it leaked all over the
it's Jordan. Can you
floor,
hear me?
mold, it came to mold.
Abby, can you hear me?
The floorboards.
Hey, Jordan, sorry, I'm
It was
outside.
a giant mess. I thought like, there's tons of money in this deal. We were working with one of our mentors, Lou Brown, on this deal. He was a partner with us on this deal. And so when we started deals, he got a partner who knew more than we did. And he said, just lower the down payment, do a work for equity program. And so this property was in a 7 out of 10 school district, one of the best areas of Kansas City, Overland Park. And we found Miss Nora and her family. And so Miss Nora is from Guatemala. She's been living in the United States for 23 years in her apartment. And then she saw this opportunity, and what she wanted a better opportunity, a better life for her children and her grandkids. And so they all moved together in this house. They fixed up the bottom floor. They got into it for $5,000. And she literally called us angels at the closing table. She said, like, you are our angels. And they were able to now live. They went from a 2-star school district to a 7-star school district. And they are now all living together, multi-generations in one house. This is another family, Dow. They moved from New York City. Washington, D.C. They were also entrepreneurs. They wanted to buy a house. They couldn't get financing through the bank. They had really good money, but they're 1099 employees and entrepreneurs. So they weren't able to get financing through the bank, and we financed them as well. So tons of these stories. Sometimes they bring cash to the closing table. This is why they can't qualify with the banks. A lot of these families have mattress money. We've literally been handed $30,000 plus at the closing tables. The bearded one in the back right-hand corner, that's our friend Ryan. He's also an entrepreneur, and we sold him a house on seller finance. So my whole shtick and what we stand for at Wrap Academy is creating tier 1 financial freedom. So my goal is to create more freedom in people's lives so that they can be freed up to really focus on their life purpose and build the skills so they have very valuable skill sets and can also focus on their dream life. So these are some of the deals that we've done. This is from our deal maker underwriting tool. We can see cash flow $538, projected 7-year profit 110. Very standard types of numbers. Cool. So now we can get into a little bit of the juice of what we're looking for. But these are all standard numbers, and one thing that we focus on is the 7-year profit. With the 7-year profits, that's on average, these deals will go 5 to 7 years before the families sell or they refinance. And so we like to know, like, if they sold or refinanced in 7 years, what our gross profit would be at that point. That would be, and so this is very average numbers. On average, they're around 100,000. They can go up to 166. You can see there, and so on. And we like to cash flow at least $400 per deal. Okay, so now that you guys understand, my first goal is like enroll you in the vision of this model. I love this model. This is why we love it. This is why we went all into this model. Now we can go a little bit more into the meat and potatoes of what we've learned and what I want to share with you all, which is just this information of what we've learned and the wisdom we've gained from doing 50 plus of these deals. So we got markets. For the wraps that we do, they're within 30 miles of a major city center. So we want to stay not in rural areas. We want to be within 30 miles of a metro. A population size minimum of 100,000. We like to have 90% of our buyers are Latino. So we like to have a Latino population above 10% in the area. And then it should be affordable housing. Typically in Kansas City, if we can sell a house with a PITI of 1,500 to 2,000, they sell really easily. Once we get above 2,500, it gets more challenging. And that's going to be market independent. It's going to be based off of your own markets. But in the Midwest, those are good rules of thumb to work with. And so typically our sales price is between 60 and 300,000, usually right around that 250,000 plus or minus 25. And then another thing that is good about this model is these families are willing to pay above market rents. So if the market rents are 1,800 in the area, we know that they are going to be comfortably be able to pay around 2,100, 2,200 for said property. So what our buy box looks like, typically we're buying 3 bedrooms at a minimum. We like to have basements. In the Midwest, there are a lot of the Latino demographics are afraid of tornadoes. And so they don't like slab foundations. This is, once again, market dependent. In Texas, everything's a slab. So in the Midwest, we want to make sure there's basements. Additional living space is huge bonus, large living spaces, spaces where families can grow into. Off-street parking is a huge plus because a lot of these families have businesses or construction, roofing, flooring, and so on. They have big trucks. They want off-street parking for their trucks. Large yards are huge as well. So some lessons of the trade. So to break down the model, the question is, what's a good market? What is a good property? And then how can I find buyers for these properties? That's one of the biggest challenges people have, is learning how to find buyers. The easiest way to find buyers in any market is to find an agent that specializes in seller financing. Sometimes these agents are actual real estate agents. Other times they are not actual real estate agents. They're just people that specialize in finding buyers, Latino buyers, non-English speaking buyers who can bring you buyers to the closing table. We sold a lot of properties like this. This is the best and easiest way to sell deals, is to find one of these agents, because it's going to save you all of the headaches of being a realtor in the deal. I personally have zero desire to be a realtor in any deal. That is not what I want to do. I don't want to show houses. I want to walk people around the different houses. So going who, not how, and finding the right who's is going to be the easiest way to find buyers. Typically, we'll pay these agents $3,000 to $5,000 or 15% of the down payment fee. So if they bring 20,000 down, we'll pay them whatever 15% of that is, 3,000. On average, 3,000 to 5,000 for one of these agents. If they're trying to charge you 6%, I personally would not do that. There are a lot of people that specialize in this who are very happy with 3,000 to 5,000. If you want to do more manual, we sold a lot of houses on Facebook Marketplace. This is more manual. we build small systems for it. We have internal systems for just auto responders and responding to people and getting showings. We want people in houses. Facebook ads is basically Facebook Marketplace on steroids. We run Facebook ads, we drive them to a form, we collect their information, we then show them houses. Signs is another way. So if you're doing signs, then you can build a system behind signs so they can call a number and go through an automation. That's a little bit more work, but we have sold properties with signs. Then Craigslist, Zillow, MLS listings are other ways. All right, let's check on the people. How are we doing? Nice, thank you, Mitch. So Joy, our agents are not listing our properties on the MLS. We have listed properties on the MLS before, and it just honestly just didn't really yield that many results. I know people that find buyers on the MLS. For me, like finding an agent, like that's the main one. Facebook Marketplace works really well. Facebook ads works really well also. For any of you ad junkies, we're getting $1 cost per lead, just straight to Messenger. And then for if we're getting form fill outs, it's usually $4 cost per form filled out. So it's very, very low cost per for the metric we're aiming towards. Bain, have we ever wrapped a lease option? No, I would not wrap a lease option. You can do a sandwich lease option, but if you're doing a lease option, you don't have equitable interest in that property, and you're giving someone else more interest in the property than you actually have. So I would not recommend wrapping a lease option. You can do a sandwich contract for deed also if you get the seller to do a contract for deed rather than a lease option. But in general, like I want my name, like I want to own that deed. I want to own the property. Yeah. Farhan, how you find sellers? That is a conversation more for a different call. You're welcome to reach out to me. There's so many ways to find sellers. It's marketing, it's lead generation. So cold calling, there's a million ways to do it. Yeah, we in the past we were doing text message marketing. We had cold callers from Egypt. We've done direct mail. We've done all the things. Okay, so Christy Stark, we have a seller who wants to sell, get the house out of his name, but wants to rent it back. Best exit strategy. So in my opinion, everything in real estate it's just an analysis of risk, right? So for that situation, if you give that person money and now they're staying in the house, you pay off their arrears, wherever that is, you have money in the deal, and now they want to stay there. So what happens if you have to evict them? Right? If you have to evict them, then now you're going to bleed more money depending on the state that you live in to get them out of that property. So everything is a question of risk, right? So I would have a conversation with that seller and kind of see what the situation is. But if they're already in a bad situation, I probably would not let them stay in the house personally. And Christy, feel free to message me also. Like, I'm happy to get on phone calls with sellers or talk to your seller or talk about this offline as well. I also have a Calendly invite link here. There's spots available. For entry, Bain. So when we first started doing this for sub twos, all of our wholesale revenue, we'd cover the entry fee, and we would aim to get large down payments in order to get back our entry fee. But there's many answers to that question also, Bain. So it depends on your like personal situation. If you're using PMLs, I'd personally recommend doing a few yourself first. Just so you can understand the situation, because you don't want to get in a situation where you get someone's money stuck in a deal. Private money partners is also an option as well. But when we were doing this at the beginning, we were getting properties for 5,000 down. So we're just covering that entry fee. We bring in a buyer. We're bringing buyers at, back then we were getting 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 down, and so that would cover a lot of that. We would make money at the close. Cool. Love all these questions. All right, I'm getting back to it. All right. So this is a question now that we're getting into more of the dispositions. So when you're pricing a deal, the down payment's always a lever. So there's a few rules of thumb, right? We went over it before. So 15% above market value is pretty standard. It's always going to be based off the desirability of a property. The down payment is always the lever for sale. So if you're ever in a situation where you can't sell a property, you can always lower the down payment. So the down payment is going to be the lever that allows for you to sell these types of deals. 15% over market value, you can structure that as an option fee if you do a lease option. You can structure that in different ways. And then typically 15 to 30% over market rents for the PITIs. Okay, so now we found a buyer, we've gotten the paperwork done, we brought them to the closing table, and now we want to set this up so that it's passive. And so this is how we manage the notes. So how we set ours up is we use a loan servicing company. The company we use is called Madison Management, and Madison Management sets up everything so they're servicing the note. How we set things up is any inquiries from the buyer always goes through Madison Management. Because when I'm at the closing table with the buyer and they have my cell phone number, they might message me over small types of things. Remember that another benefit of this type of model is that the families have ownership mindset. And with ownership mindset, we're not dealing with tenants or toilets or things are broken and so on. So we set everything up with the loan servicing company so that all the questions go to Madison Management. They're the intermediary between the buyer and us. And then Madison Management will tell us, they'll say, hey, this ise is going on, and then we'll resolve the issues from there. But we want to set everything up so there's an intermediary, and that's the lifestyle design set up for us because I just don't have a whole lot of desirability of having my phone blown up with urgencies. I like to keep my life free from urgencies as much as possible and live in a nice, peaceful way. So communicate and collect. Cool. So this will go into more of your question as well, Bain. So do you find buyers before you close? How long on average to find buyers? No, these are great questions. So we usually don't find buyers before we close. When we were doing sub twos more, we would try to line up double closes. But if you know the rules of thumb, for these types of deals, you don't need to do a double close because you just know that these properties have meat on them. They're on average $100,000 of gross profit over 7 years. So, we've had to fire sale properties and we've had to lower that monthly payment or that monthly cash flow to as low as like $200. And $200 is like a really tight deal. I would not want to get into deals like that. But we had a slab foundation in a location that the buyers didn't like, and we were learning. And so in that learning process, we had to lower the down payment, get a family inside, and cut our losses. But if you understand the fundamentals of these types of deals and what buyers are looking for, then you're not really going to need to do double closes. The only time I'd worry about double closes is one, if it's my first deal and I'm not confident yet. I don't know what I don't know. But yeah, if you have a good deal in a good area and you follow the principles that we kind of went over, you don't really need to do a double close. Okay. So once you have these notes, you can then leverage these notes for liquidity if you desire to. A big thing with this model is that there's equity and cash flow, but there's not a whole lot of cash now. So this is one of the downsides of this model. This is an investment strategy. So you should have some sort of way to make cash now, whether it's through wholesaling, a W-2 job. There's many ways to make cash now. And so based off of how you're getting active income, this is your investment strategy. And then if you ever want to, you're going to have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 of equity in these notes. And depending how you sell them, you're able to borrow against these notes if you want to. So there's different ways to sell these types of deals. You can sell them on lease options, you can sell them on contract for deed, or you can do a true wrap where you give the deed away. Depending on the state and the location, you can structure it in different ways. For us, we mostly do long-term lease options. And with doing long-term lease options, we're allowed to borrow money against our notes. So you can bring in, we call them cash streams, where you sell off the cash flow in exchange for cash now. So you inject liquidity into our company so we can buy more deals. All right, everyone still with me? So Cool. So we got Mitch. If you're doing a single close, any concerns or issues with the seller seeing your fee? Um, what do you mean by that, Mitch?
If you're getting 50,000 down payment and 20 of it's going to the seller and 30 is going to you, any concern with the seller saying, whoa, you're making a lot of money on this deal at my expense?
Well, these are always two separate transactions. It's never gonna be a single close on the same HUD. So even if it's a double close, it's like we're closing with the seller today, and we're sitting down with the buyers to sign the paperwork with the buyers.
So it's two different closes then. So the seller,
Yeah.
your fee is not on the HUD then. Okay, understood.
No.
And real quick, are you doing more when you're acquiring? Are you acquiring more on a subject to, or are you getting new financing and then doing a lease option?
So now we're doing DSCR loans. When we first started, we were doing sub twos.
And on a DSCR loan, you're taking that out in your name, correct? You're buying it with a DSCR, so the property is already cash flowing, and you'll have a 1-to-1 ratio, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, DSCR lenders don't need the property to be already cash flowing. They'll look at market. I mean, depends on the DSCR lender, but they'll look at market comps for rents.
Got it. And so you'll
Yeah.
take out any other financing. It'll be in first position, the DSCR.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. And then you're the guarantor in that loan, though. So this is also why we get to charge premium on these deals and cash flow because we're the one guaranteeing that loan. All right, Bain. If we're doing a jacket strategy, do you pay yourself an assignment on the front? So for the full jacket, it's basically a burr, right? So buy, renovate, refinance. So we're usually getting cash out on the refinance, or ideally a rate and term on the refinance. We're leaving no cash in the deal. We're not giving ourselves an assignment when we first buy the properties. So we sell to the families on lease options now, but we've done everything. We've done contract for deeds, we've done lease options, we've done true wraps, and there's pros and cons to each of these. At this state, like I like the long-term lease options because we have more control. And there's a bunch of things that happen in Kansas, and we didn't want to be violating all of our DSCR loans by selling it on a true wrap because the lender doesn't like that. And so we just found that lease options for all the reasons for us, it checked all the boxes. And if you have more questions, these are more like deep in the weeds kinds of questions, like book a call with me and I'm happy to go through some more of these the kind of in the weeds questions. But I want to keep it relatively high level right now. All right. What's up, Jeff? Yeah, so Joshua, for the lease options, for the long-term lease options, we have it in the option agreement that as taxes and insurance increase, that they will also increase for the buyers. So that's all included in our option contracts. Nice. All right, how the beginners out there doing? Are you guys following? Give me a thumbs up if you guys are hanging out there with us. Cool. All right. So to recap, we love this model because it is a growing market. It's a blue ocean. It is the fastest growing demographic in the United States that are not being served by the banks. They're also amazing families to have in our houses. I find a lot of the first generation Americans are not litigation heavy. Our mentor has done this for 30 years. He says if families ever have to leave, like they're not really bringing you to court. They oftentimes say, hey, like I can't perform, you can have the keys back. One of our students, Jacob, just had this happen. He took a lower down payment and the family, something with the administration, they had to leave. So he collected rent for a year and they just gave him the key back and now he's selling it again. But another thing that we love about this model is we currently have a 90% success rate with these families. So the families that we finance are performing. And that aligns with our core values that we want to create freedom, we want to create homeowners, and we're not taking back tons of houses. There's a lot of predatory lease option structures where people do a 3-year lease option, and then when they can't pay in 3 years, they take the house back and do it again. That's not our business. That's not what we stand for. That's not what we desire to create. So 10 houses to tier one financial freedom. So for me, tier one is like covering your living expenses. And that can be maybe it's 20 houses for other people. But this to me is the entry level strategy when you transition from doing wholesaling to holding. This to me is the easiest pivot. And so for me, getting your first houses on lease options and wraps and building those skill sets is going to create financial freedom for you for the rest of your life. And I'm 100% concerned with that. Doing good while doing well, structuring things that we are having a positive impact on these buyers, and feeling good, being able to sleep at night knowing that we're creating a positive difference in the world, and creating more homeowners. And then also changing generations and allowing people to achieve the American dreams. Like when you do these deals, go to the closing tables, sit down with them, ask them their stories, learn about their stories, post about their stories. This is a whole different thing about personal branding, but like share the stories of success that you're creating. All right. So I want to share with you guys a little bit more of what we're creating. So we have a few communities, and the of foundation of freedom is at the core of everything that we do. Like my mission in life is to create more freedom in the world for our students as well as for the families that we put into houses. So it's all about creating freedom in the world. It's my belief that when people have their core necessities uh, resolved financially, they're freed up to serve God's will for themselves in the world. And that's a choice point. Maybe you'll want to do, 100 of these. Maybe you'll want to do different asset classes. Maybe you want to apply this exit strategy to land or mobile home parks or build tiny house villages, whatever that is. But my focus is getting people to tier one financial freedom, because at that point, you have a choice point. You have a choice to take a step back, take a breath, and ask, what is like, I have all these skill sets now. I know how to do creative financing. I know sales. I know how to seller finance deals. I know how to build a small business. What now can I apply that to that sets my soul on fire and makes me super stoked to wake up every single morning? And that's what I stand to create. Okay. So in our community wrap academy, we have underwriting tools, and we have all of our contracts. And we have a community of people doing wraps all over the country. Um, our underwriting tool is called the Deal Maker. It was built in-house and it's built specifically for wraps. And I can give you guys a quick look at that before we finish this. Weekly calls, guest speakers. So we have two communities. We have, for people just getting started, we have Seller Finance Freedom Academy, which is totally free. It's on Skool. I'll send you a link in the chat, and that's totally free. Come in. There's master classes, there's resources, there's community. Post, share. I give back to that community as much as I possibly can. And then for those who are like, I'm 100% committed to like removing shiny object syndrome and like doing this model, then I highly recommend Wrap Academy as our paid mentorship. This is where we give you our underwriting tools, our contract. We have a community of people doing wraps all over the country. We have weekly calls. We have guest speakers. And regardless of if any of this resonates with you, like my goal in this call is just to open your minds to the possibility of this model so that you guys can just have that illumination happen within yourself. And if you decide this is the model for you, highly recommend Wrap Academy, because we've made so many mistakes in doing our first 50 deals. And my goal is to like eliminate that, give you borrowed confidence, do it with you, and get you guys your first wrap deals, or if you want to scale, get you guys that level of scale. So some of our student highlights. This is Dan. Dan was one of our first students, and Dan had a few bad flips in Alabama. He's gotten bad deals, and it was a bit of a dumpster fire. And so he wanted to escape these bad deals by selling on seller financing. He saw the potential. We talked on the phone, and we supported him in selling two of his bad flips in Alabama on seller financing, and he turned big losses into eventual profits. Jacob Trogan used to work for us. He's now an equity millionaire at 25, or he's very close to being an equity millionaire. He has, I think, 20 of these now fully done. And Jacob has done this over the past year and a half, about 1 to 2 properties per month, in a very chill way. He would flip one, he would get two wraps, 3 wraps, and he now has 8,000 plus of passive cash flow coming in every single month. So he's more than covered his living expenses. And he's at 25 years old. Jacob's going to do huge things in the world. We have Kyle Trepsky. He started from zero. While working a full-time job, full-time W-2, and he's now in his 3rd wrap in Texas. This is Dan, had 3 bad flips in Alabama, salvaged them, sold them. Corey, he's doing his first ever one right now in Kansas City. He just acquired the property, also working a full-time W-2. Sam Mayberger worked for us. Now he's done 3 to 4 wraps and lease options, and he's looking to scale this model to also get his wife retired. So these are some of the stories. And then, yeah, you guys can book a call directly with me for a roadmap consultation if you have more questions. My goal is just to give as much as I can. So chat about how to take your first steps with Wraps and then see if you might be a good fit for Wrap Academy. If you're not, hop into Seller Finance Freedom Academy, which I can send here, and this program is totally free. And I will also open it up for some questions.
Bill, how long does it normally take you to find a buyer on these deals?
What's up, Bane? I love all your questions, man. The people that ask, like,
Sorry,
when you ask a lot of
I'm
questions, you're destined for success. So how long does it take to find a buyer? It really depends, man. Like, we've had deals where we found a buyer in the first 2 days. The longest one we ever had to hold was 4 months. And that was the one that we ended up just fire selling. We brought the down payment down, we got it sold, and it was just, it's a lesson learned. But I'm very conservative in how I structure deals. So I'm always underwriting for 4 months of holding. But on average, I would like to have them sold within a month.
What was the biggest lesson you took from that one that took that long?
It was a slab foundation. It was the monthly payments were like 2,300, which was a lot for the area, and it was a smaller house. And for all those reasons, it made it really unappealing. There's no space for storage. It was a smaller house. The monthly payments were high for Kansas City, and yeah, all those reasons.
Nice, thank you.
Keith, you have a question, or are you just giving us a sub two?
No, actually, a question on the lease options. What percentage of your lease option buyers do you find are exercising the option at the end?
Yeah, so we transitioned to lease options about a year ago, and so we do long-term lease options. We're doing 30-year lease options, and we have a rent credit that goes towards the principal. So it's structured in a way that they don't ever execute. They're still going to, as long as they make payments at the end of 30 years, they'll pay it off the property.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've structured it in that way. I'm also working on a 10-year lease option product as well. But like my goal is to have like high conversion rate. I want these people to succeed.
And so what about the deed? It's not deeded over to them, correct?
No.
So it's a contract for deed, basically?
It's like, yeah, but it's a lease option. It's a lease with the option. The contract for deed is like the next level of protection for the buyer. So yeah, and the reason that we switch to lease options is like there's a few reasons that we end up switching. Because our plan was to do like hundreds of these, and we were doing DSCR loans, and I didn't want to be immediately selling those on contract for deed or wraps because I thought that there could be some issue with due on sales in the future. Right. So we structured it as a lease option just for protection. I just didn't want anything to blow up in 10 years.
And then so it's in the contract that once the term is over, then they're just automatically given ownership of the property.
Yeah, we have a rent credit table. So every single month they have credits towards their principal.
Got you. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Christy, will we be able to do comfortable do our first deal through Seller Finance Academy? I mean, that's very much so like a you question. I'm happy to chat. I would say yes. I mean, I think you can do a deal regardless. It's just a matter of like finding the property and then learning the steps. And then if you have like a property that you want to sell on seller financing and you don't have maybe the initial investment for Wrap Academy, I do partnership structures also. So I'm very creative in how I structure things. Like, once again, back to the goal of freedom. Like, the goal is create freedom. If you have a deal, like, this deal works well, then talk to me and we'll figure out a way to do it together. What's up, Bing?
Hey, Philip, can I ask a couple of questions?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. One is, do you know anyone who's doing this remotely? Like, if they're not doing it in the city they live in?
Yeah. Dan's doing it remotely. Some of our students, Dustin and Chris, are doing it in Louisiana, and they're living in Buenos Aires.
Hmm.
I'm about to
Okay.
move to Austin, so I'm doing it remotely as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
it's, it's
that's totally feasible in your mind.
honestly, a lot of our students are doing it remotely.
Yeah. Okay.
The majority of our students actually doing it remotely.
Interesting. Okay. Good to know. And then for the DSCR loans, right? DSC, well, two things. One is the rate is going to be higher than probably most sub twos, right?
Yeah.
But it gives you more flexibility because then you're not limited to sourcing only sub two. That's the
Yep.
thinking. And the
And
sorry, go ahead. Yep.
so with the DSCR loan, you have more equity. With a subject to wrap, you have more interest rate arbitrage. So it's just a different structure. So
Oh, because
instead,
sorry.
yeah, because with the interest rate arbitrage, your equity grows every single year. So your equity is actually increasing.
Yeah.
With the jacket, your equity is basically staying the same, which is also amazing if you're collecting, $500 a month in cash flow and your equity remains the same.
Right. And are you charging roughly like market rate for the rate to the buyer, like mortgage rates in the high sixes, or what are you charging them?
And this becomes a bit of an art. So for
Yeah.
me, I prefer to have a higher sale price than a higher interest rate because I want to capitalize. I want to create that equity. So that
More
equity
equity.
spread, I'm going to realize that eventually. So typically we're selling between 8 and 10%, usually like 9%, I would say is the majority of our properties.
Okay.
Yeah. But
And the DSCR loan, sorry, but last thing, DSCR loan, the lender is okay to give you a like a 30-year DSCR loan, basically?
yep,
Yeah. Okay. Great.
yep.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great question.
Philip, this is great stuff. Really appreciate this. So basically, when you're acquiring your properties, you're getting a DSCR. What kind of an LTV are they giving you? Are they giving you 100% or 80%?
So we were buying on bridge financing and then we're renovating and then we're refinancing to the DSCR. And like the cool thing about the strategy though is like the gold is in the exit, right? And there's so many different ways to structure it so that you have financing in place. Dustin and Chris, they are now finding the buyers first. The buyers bring 20% down. They're using that down payment as a down payment on their DSCR loan and they're buying directly with the DSCR from the MLS, right? So there's a lot of ways to be artistic and get creative with this model. So we buy, bridge, renovate, and refinance, and our goal is to get cash out at the refinance. If you buy directly with a DSCR loan, you're usually bringing 20% down plus the fees.
And then that's made up by the buyer bringing maybe 25%. You take care of the 20% of the DSCR, and then after expenses, you put 5% in your pocket, and then you arbitrage the price and the rate.
Exactly. And even, because once again, this is like an investment strategy. So for me, if I'm leaving 5,000 in a deal, but it's going to profit me, $80,000 over 7 years, that's an amazing cash on cash return. And you built an amazing asset for very little money. And if you want to bring an investor to cover that 5K or even 10K, you can.
And I might have missed it. Do you put a balloon on this, or if you've got a 30-year DSCR, you let them stay in there for 30 years?
Yeah. And it's just the law of averages. On average, 5 to 7 years, the families will sell or refinance.
Got it. And with a lease option, if they get kidnapped by aliens and stop paying your mortgage, what is the foreclosure process like, or taking the property back since it's a lease option? What does that involve?
That's going to be state specific. But a lease option is an eviction, not a foreclosure.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And every state has different rules. And once again, everything in real estate is risk management. So if I'm living in California and I don't know what the eviction process is like there, but I imagine it's very long and drawn out. I would only do this with very large down payments, because then I keep some in reserves to cover in case that were to happen. But to this point, we've yet to have to fully go through an eviction. We've had one family, we've only evicted them twice. And each time they catch us up like days before the eviction and they bring us $15,000. So it's like, all right, you're good for
Got it.
the
Now,
next
given that
time.
this is not a subject to, you don't need to get an RMLO to vet the buyers, correct?
No.
How do you vet your buyers?
Yeah. So how our mentor taught us is he said the down payment like vets them so much. And that's also, once again, risk mitigation. For myself, I'm comfortable if I'm getting a large down payment from these buyers that I don't feel a need to do anything in addition. If the down payment's lower, then I'll probably run them through some sort of background check just to check for evictions or bankruptcy or foreclosure. But yeah, mentors have been doing this for a long time. They're not facing a whole lot of these issues because, you know, fresh citizens, first generation Americans, like they don't want to really go to court, I'd imagine.
Phil, I don't know if this is a like separate convo or for the group, but can you talk more about that sandwich contract for deed? I have a deal right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do with them because they don't want to do sub two, but they're happy with like a lease option wrap. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts on structuring are.
Yeah, I've never done a sandwich contract for deed. So I was taught that when you buy, like you should buy and get the deed. Once again, question of risk, right? I've also talked to other people that are okay with buying on contract for deed. My thoughts around it is if you do a sandwich contract for deed, you're just passing off the same interest that you have to the buyer. You can probably put a clause in that contract for deed stating that like if this buyer, if the seller like for some reason like screws us over, we're passing that off to the buyer. And that's I'm not sure how exactly you would structure that, but that's where my thought process goes. It's like how can I make sure the buyer is protected? And the worst case scenario is that seller somehow like doesn't execute or stops. Yeah, it kind of screws you over.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to talk outside here, just shoot me a message. All right, let's get back to Chrissy really quick. So the seller I mentioned earlier is a brother. He would potentially want to purchase the house back when his marital status improves. He was married for a year, currently going through a divorce. He wants the house out of his name. He's thinking she has access to high-level lawyers and will try to take the house. Yeah, Chrissy, I'm happy to work with you on this deal. Where my mind goes is, does he have money to put down? And when you say he's a brother, is he your brother? Pleasure, William. I don't know if Chris is still here, but yeah, that those are the questions that I have. Because if you can put skin in the game, that protects you. Okay, he's your brother, so then you probably trust him on a pretty high level. If that's the case, then yeah, there's definitely a way to structure it. I don't know what's illegal with the divorce attorneys, um, because that's not really arm's length. He'd be selling to his sister and still living in the house. Um, so probably a question for the attorneys, but theoretically, yes, you could structure that in a way that you took the property over and you allowed for him to stay in the property. Awesome. I love all the high level questions in here. It's fun stuff to get into. Nah, we are typically buying distressed properties. Yeah, we'll either buy from wholesalers or we used to buy direct to seller or we'll buy sub twos. But typically most real estate is going to be distressed sellers.
Hey Phil, do you have a link to sign up for your paid mentorship just like right off the rip? I booked a call with you, but it's like next week, so you know if I want to do
Okay.
that sooner than that.
Yeah, yeah, shoot me a message. We can hop on a call and we can hop on a call after this.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, pleasure. Gita, yes, this recording will be available to view later. If you guys signed up through Luma, we'll send you over the recording right after.
What states are you typically doing this? I know you said Kansas City, but I mean like Missouri, but what other states?
So my personal portfolio is Kansas and Missouri. We have students in Louisiana, in Indianapolis, in Wichita, Alabama, Texas. I'm really all across the country. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Midwestern markets for this model. Florida is also amazing. We have a student in Florida as well. I really like the Midwestern markets. Florida's nice. Texas, Alan was on here before, I believe. But Alan's actually, he teaches wraps in Texas. In Texas, you can't do lease options. So you have to do a true wrap. And then Alan's a great resource for that as well, because he's been doing this for a really long time and he knows all the legal that you get to do in Texas. But Texas is another really good market as well. It just has more legal kind of things to navigate. You need to know your paperwork really well and just have a good resource there. Yeah,
Thank-
Giselle, what you need.
Yeah, thank you. This was really valuable. This information is great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And
Anyone
thank
else
you
have any?
for the call.
Yeah, thanks for coming. It's really fun to get on these calls and just my goal is just open up the minds of possibilities. I truly love this model. And like other really interesting things is I went to a mastermind called the Land Collective Mastermind, and they do this exact thing with land in Texas. You find 15 acres, convert it to residential. You plat the land into individual parcels, and then they seller finance each parcel of the land. And people do this with mobile homes. There's the slow flip method where you're buying a house for 30,000 with cash and seller financing it for 90,000. So like this, and it's all the same exit strategy. It's all the same concept of the exit strategy. And so there's so many ways you can apply this. I think single family houses is like, that's what I know. So that's what I stick to and that's what I teach. But later on, there's more and more opportunities to do this in different asset classes. The land guys, they're doing extremely well. Like when you get into like large pieces of land, it's, these are $500,000 deals for one deal. So these are bigger numbers, bigger deals, very similar concepts. Awesome. All right. Any final questions? Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for all coming. Once again, I'll throw my calendar link in there. Join Seller Finance Freedom Academy. Reach out to me on Facebook. I'm here to be of as much service as I can be, and I'm really grateful for you all coming and asking these amazing questions. It makes it really fun for me. So it all gets me very excited. So thank you guys.